Hello and welcome to another vocal and not a vocal analysis. We're not doing vocal analysis today. That was a force of habit. That shows how many analyses videos I've been recording lately. Welcome to another live hangout, everyone. I can't promise that won't be an indication as to how today will go with our live hangout, but hopefully things will hopefully things will improve. I hope you are doing well wherever you are. Hello to some new names that I'm seeing in the hangout. I just want to say hello to all our regulars, Linda and Kelly, and I see Karen from Singwise is there. Hi, Karen. But I also wanted to say hello to a new name that I've just seen in the chat, Jane's Bond. And I wanted to say hello in part because I think that's a great handle, Jane's Bond. That's fantastic. Jane's Bond, I hope you enjoy our hangout today. And if it's your first time hanging out with us, welcome. Today what we're going to do is a kind of a mini topic. I promised last week when I was still not 100%, and I'm physically much better. For those of you who don't regularly tune in, I got sick just with your common cold and flu, but man, it gave me a good kick. So I was still not back to my 100% last week, and this week vocally I'm still not quite there, but physically feeling like I am. So we'll do a mini topic today, and last week, as I said, I promised it would be very encouraging. It's going to be encouraging. I will certainly hope it's going to be encouraging. We're going to be talking about transforming criticism into growth. This is a big thing for developing singers. Well, singers of any stage. Criticism is an ever-present thing, because singing is such an it's open to so much objective and subjective reflection, and so we're going to talk about how to handle that criticism in a really positive way today. I do just want to recognize I will try and get to your questions, in specifically your questions from last week, because in my not still being, I think this is indicative of it shows that I wasn't really on last week. I said through the show, oh, we don't have any questions, and I thought that was really odd, and because I couldn't see any questions in the live document from Linda, and I thought, oh, okay, it's just a quiet day. I was looking at the wrong page. Linda was faithfully putting the questions there, and I just didn't see them because I had the Word document simply open on the wrong page. So there were questions being asked last week. We did answer one. We answered one question, but there were other questions being asked as a part of the live chat, and I got to be honest with you, I just missed them, and I think it was because I still just wasn't on. Hopefully that won't be the case today. So, as we're going through our mini topic today, if you do have questions that you would like answered after we've had a chat about transforming criticism into growth, leave your questions in the live chat. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with how we do things, you must be subscribed, and when you subscribe, hit the white bell icon. That way you get notified for when we do these, 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on a Monday, most Mondays. Yeah, so that's, you subscribe, that way you can leave a question. Linda grabs your question, puts it into the Google Doc for Daniel, who hopefully has it on the right page, and then I do my best to answer your questions, and we will answer some questions at the end of today's show because Daniel will be reading the right questions, all things being all things being equal. Oh dear. We do have some fun. I like to think we have some fun on this show. You know, singing becomes such a... We can take ourselves too seriously, can't we, at times? And singing, you know, drawing as much attention as singing does, it's all too easy to start taking it more seriously than we ought. Singing, and Linda and I had a conversation about this a couple of weeks ago, because I made the comment that singing is not rocket science. It's not, you know, it's singing's not about, you know, creating world harmony or world, you know, life change. But, you know, we're not solving, you know, creating a cure for cancer. But it does play an important role in people's lives, and I do understand that. I do acknowledge that. It certainly plays an important part in my life. But equally, we just want to keep everything in good balance and measure, and so we try not to take ourselves too seriously here at Voice Essentials. And if you're new to the community, I think you'll find that that's the case. And what I think you'll also find is the case is that here at Voice Essentials, we're a very encouraging community. And this is where I want to sort of segue into talking about transforming criticism into growth. Criticism has almost a negative connotation, doesn't it? When you hear the word criticism, certainly here in Australia, that word is almost loaded to and defined as having this negative undercurrent. I think that doesn't need to be the case. In the past, I've had the habit of using or saying, replacing the word criticism with the idea of critique, with the sense that it's not got that harsh, judgmental action to it, but it is threaded and imbibed with a sense of encouragement. And that's, can I just put on the record, and many of you will think it's not necessary for me to do so, but let me just say, whenever I'm doing my vocal analyses videos, that's the approach that I take. If there is ever a sense in which I am critiquing and analysing the voice in question, I like to think that we can approach that with a sense of encouragement and with a sense in which we want to build that singer up, not with a view to tearing them down, but with a view to acknowledging their skill and their talent and their hard work, but all the while acknowledging also at the same time that they're human and they are prone, as I am, as you are, they are at times prone to error. And when I say error, I simply mean prone to getting things wrong. You can't get things right 100% of the time. If you do, you're a robot and you've got other issues. Okay, so let's get into talking about transforming criticism into growth. And I need to jump over here. We're going to go through a whole range of really interesting... I've got 5 points that I want to kind of make as we go along today. So we're not going to spend all of our session together on these slides. We will have time for Q&A at the end. But let's jump in here and talk about point 1. That is, I want you to start thinking about how can you embrace and appreciate criticism. And if you're anything like me, when criticism is placed at your feet, this is easier said than done, isn't it? It can be really difficult to not immediately respond with a sense of walls up, be defensive. I'm, going to be not going to take on board what's being said here, because our singing is so connected to our psyche. You know, what I don't buy into is when people say, look, you know, don't take this personally, but man, when the moment I hear that, I go, no, let's not start the conversation that way. Let's not start the conversation with, don't take this personally. Because actually, for us as singers, there is kind of no other way to take it. Do you know what? I've just seen a super chat. I can't actually read it because it's not, it's not on screen, but I've seen it and we'll get to it later. Thank you for the super chat, whoever has put it up there. I've got a little icon down at the bottom of my screen. I can't see who it is. Oh, it's Kelly. It's always Kelly. Kelly's always putting up super chats. Thank you, Kelly. So let's get back to this conversation. I want you to try and embrace criticism as an opportunity. See it as a chance to grow. You know, and so whilst, and this can take a lot of practice, whilst the immediate response might be to, and I know for me it has been in the past, to throw up those defense mechanisms to go, oh, that might even be your immediate response, but try to soften that in the initial and just go, okay, hang on a second. I know I'm not perfect as a singer. And so, given that I'm not perfect, there's almost certainly stuff that can be critiqued. And so let me just take a back step from those defenses and let me see this as an opportunity for someone to even identify areas that I need to grow in that I might not have accounted for after performance X, Y, Z. You also want to appreciate the effort that someone is going to. Now this has to be, we have to do this in accordance with the person who's giving the criticism, but at times a person might be taking a risk. A loved one, a trusted person in our lives might even feel like they're taking a risk to bring you the feedback, and we want to be able to recognize that. And so even for us to get into that habit of saying, once we get past that initial shock of, oh dear, okay, here we go, I'm not perfect, and to get to the point where you go, for the next point to be, after I've heard the criticism, to thank that person, say, hey, thank you for taking the time and making the effort to reflect your view of what I've just done back to me, because I really value that. Again, these are areas of maturity, and I don't pretend for a moment to have this all tied up with a neat little bow in my own existence as a singer. But these are the things that I work on, and I'm sure these are the things that you're working on as well. The second thing that we can be working on is, okay, so the criticism has been provided. Now, what we do need to do, and this doesn't need to happen immediately as the criticism is given, but we do need to then analyze that critique, because not all criticism is made equal. Yeah? Not all criticism is created equal. Not all criticism is coming from the same place. Not all criticism is given by the same level of capacity for in that individual. So the level of critique that I might be able to give a voice might be different to that which just thinking off the top of my head, what my son could give. Now, my son has done some singing lessons with me. He plays piano. He's done some public singing. But his understanding is not quite up to what mine is with 30 years of teaching voice. So, not quite 30 years. I'm aging myself, 28 this year. 28 years of teaching voice. So, there's not all criticism is created equal. And so we need to we need to assess, is the criticism I'm being provided, is it constructive? Or is it actually purposed to be destructive? And I think we can all recognize different times where the criticism that was given was really actually very positive. It was delivered with a sense of positivity and encouragement. It was still recognizing some things that you needed to work on, but you really knew where the person was coming from. What about those other times, though, where you've received criticism and you just know that the person providing that critique was not giving that with a sense of positive intent? So be mindful of that. Analyze it for validity. And then use valid criticism as a tool for self-improvement. When you're able to, if you assess that a piece of criticism is not valid, then dismiss it. You don't even have to shelve it. Just dismiss it. Again, easier said than done. And you go, well, yeah, but you can get something out of everything. That on one level is true, but this will not be the last time you ever receive criticism. So if you assess that actually I'm not in a place to receive that for whatever reason, whether it's coming from the wrong place, the wrong person, for the wrong reasons, just dismiss it and leave it. Don't carry it if it's not valid. But if it is, reflect on it, chew on it, ask for further clarification. Encourage the person to unpack it with you, because really positive criticism is typically going to have some thoughtfulness behind it, and that person's then going to be able to really identify specific areas that you can really work on. And so, for example, let's say it's your pitch accuracy. And in fact, this happened in a lesson today. One of my professional students, brilliant singer, there was a moment where the pitch was just off. And I said, while we're in the middle of working on a song, oh, pitch, just be careful there, you're just a bit flat. And then afterwards he said, I could hear it, but I wasn't quite sure, what was causing it. And then I was able to unpack it with him. And in his particular case, it was a built-up sense, a pent-up sense of tension, which was just dragging the voice flat a little bit. Now, in the case of a lesson, he knows that I'm giving that feedback with a sense of encouragement, but he also knew that he could ask for further clarification because that feedback was coming from a place of validity. A third area that we want to then think about is seeking support and surrounding ourselves with positivity. I purposefully use the word positivity here because there is such thing as toxic positivity. So we do want to be very careful about the nature of the positivity. We don't want to just be, making ourselves feel better for the sake of making ourselves feel better. That's toxic. It's not going to actually lead anywhere positive. But that being said, we can find ourselves in communities of singers who are going to give us and provide us with that sense of really non-toxic positivity. And so you want to connect yourselves with those people. And once again, it's an opportunity for me to encourage you to engage in groups like ours here at Voice Essentials. Become a part of the community, subscribe to the YouTube channel, join the Facebook group community. It's a wonderfully positive, encouraging group. You will receive moments of critique, sometimes from me, where I'll identify something in a performance that you might have uploaded to the group. And but for the most part, it's such a wonderful group of people that you can engage with and grow with, you know. And isn't it, for those of you who are already a part of the community, isn't it such a wonderful thing when we get people reporting about how their development has been benefited by being in the group? I think that's fantastic. And also think about community groups like community choirs. I participate in my community church. It's an opportunity for me to be with like-minded people, to be with people who are into music and developing their voice, or, you know, it's just a matter of us having that sense of connection with other people, and in this particular instance, with other people who are interested in developing their singing. And community choirs are awesome. I'm regularly directing students towards their involvement and their engagement in community choirs. Singing is such a powerful community activity, and a community choir is a great group for you to be a part of. Practice and seek professional guidance. Now, there are times where we do need that additional layer, dare I say, that higher level of critique that friends, family, and community may not be able to provide. And that comes from your ability to engage and interact with professional level guidance. A good singing teacher is going to be directing you towards regular practice. But equally, a good singing teacher isn't just going to be directing you towards regular practice of singing songs, because if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. You've heard me say that before. We do have to be practicing in such a way that it's got a sense of forward momentum, a sense of development of particular skills. And in doing so, we're then able to workshop certain skills, which you're almost certainly going to find challenging to really refine. Here in my lessons, we spend 15 to 20 minutes, so a third of the lesson, reviewing, refining exercises we may have been doing for weeks, but they need to be continued to be tweaked in order to produce better outcomes. And so that's something that you want to be allowing your professional guidance to direct you in. And then because, you know, we're going to be able to target very specific things in that development of the regular practice. Practice is not just about repeating the same mistakes. Practice is about, yes, making mistakes, but then refining, polishing, you know, doing all the things that we need to move forward. One more before we get into some Q&A. And this almost brings us full circle back to where we started. Respond graciously and stay motivated. One way we can respond graciously is, don't feel like you need to tell the person who's providing the feedback whether or not their feedback is valid or not. You don't need to tell them that. You can respond magnanimously and say, hey, thanks very much for bringing that to my attention. But equally, you might, in that very same moment, go, within yourself, there is no way I'm taking that on. Or you can respond graciously, again, recognizing the effort, and go, thank you so much. I'm working on that area, and it's really helpful to have your reflection on my performance or what I'm doing, because it's really going to continue to build into the fact that I am currently workshopping my breath management or pitch accuracy or vowel shape or performance engagement. We could be here all day talking about the different factors around your singing. And so you want to be gracious, you want to be thankful. But at no point, don't allow any criticism, valid or otherwise, to form and fester any level of discouragement. None of us have arrived. We are all on a journey of development. And what we want that criticism to do is to create motivation, forward momentum in the development. There's no question that at times, and I've certainly experienced this myself, at times criticism, we can take a hit. And sometimes, even if it's not intentionally designed to hurt, it can be hurtful. But once we recover from that intended or otherwise hurt, that hit that we've taken, dust yourself off, go again. Because the greatest, the most unfortunate outcome of criticism is for a singer to stop and not keep going. And so we want to maintain that sense of motivation, that sense of continuing, because we want to be transformed. We want to grow, don't we? And like I said, I want this all to be a really positive message to you, because you're going to have to handle criticism at some point. You will already have had to handle criticism at some point. And so I hope that's encouraging to you today. Let's get into questions. I promised we wouldn't spend all day doing the chats. So I've lived up. I've held up to my end of the bargain. I want to just come back here to Kelly. So this is Kelly was asking a super chat. Do you suggest practicing in optimal auditory situations in the shower, at church, amplified, or is it best in a normal room? What a great question, Kelly. I wonder if I can find your question and put it up on. I can. Look at me. Oh dear. Let's see if I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it. Here it is, Kelly. Do you suggest practicing in optimal auditory situations? Look, if I could have us all practicing in optimal auditory situations 100% of the time, I would. You know, if we could all optimally have a dedicated rehearsal space in our own homes, you know, I'm very fortunate here. I have access to my own teaching studio where I can regularly practice. But not everyone has that. In fact, fewer have it than do. Mind you, the one area that I always tell singers not to practice in is in the car. That is very much subpar when it comes to the audial situation. And so I'm always encouraging singers, don't practice in the car. Don't warm up in the car. It is a below standard for how hard it's going to make your voice work. And I don't want to see you driving the voice too hard in the initial sense. So, so no singing in the car. Equally though, what you can do is think about the room in which you do choose to practice in your own house. I would encourage, try to avoid the space being too big. So for many people, like a lounge room, like a living room, might be a space that's just a bit too big, because the time at which the sound leaves the mouth and hits the surfaces around you will be that much longer. And so the acoustical feedback that we get, the room presence that we get back, can leave us to just work a little bit harder than we might want to. That's the reason, for example, that we don't like to, that singing in open air venues is that much harder, because the voice just goes and doesn't come back. And so we can find ourselves working the voice too hard. So rooms the size of a bedroom, even a large bedroom. Now, I must say, this studio, believe it or not, this studio in my house is actually a small living room. So this is kind of the perfect size for vocal practice, and hence I use it as a studio, despite the fact that it's a living room. So when I talk, a lot of living rooms are bigger than this room that I'm in right now. And so we really want to find a room that, certainly we wouldn't want it to be any bigger than this. We're thinking about the surfaces that are in the room. So soft surfaces are going to absorb sound and not reflect the acoustic, whereas completely hard surfaces, like those in your bathroom, in your laundry, they are going to be much more reflective, which is why we get that real resonance. And there are times when I say to a student, okay, this week I want you to practice a certain activity or a certain song in your bathroom. I want you to play with the resonance that you're getting back from that space. But more often than not, I think we're going to find ourselves in a bedroom type scenario, and we're going to be thinking about the surfaces, carpets, bricks, gyprock, all of these things. What are the surfaces that we're dealing with? So I hope that's helpful, Kelly, and answers your question. Now, just so I don't get this wrong, I'm going to come down, and I'm going to come all the way down to the correct document page, unlike last week, and make sure I get the right questions. Now, there was a question here way back at the beginning of the show, which I'm just going to find when I can find that. It was this question here. Could you analyze the voice of Tata Barahona? Barahona? You can hear, even for the fact that I'm struggling to say the name, I'm unfamiliar with that singer, so I'm going to have to look that up and see who that is, because I don't know. So I won't make a commitment to analyze the voice of Tata. Is that how I pronounce it? I hope so. Until I've had a listen. But generally when people recommend me going to have a listen to new singers, they're often very, very good. So I'll be sure to check that out. Now I've got one here. This is from Michaela. Hello, Michaela. You're a new name to me. Welcome to the community. I've got vocal cord surgery, and though everything's 100% healed, I still can't sing in head voice, as if the lesion is still there. Can I train it to come back? Michaela, I'm going to be very general in my response to you, because vocal fold surgery typically is very specific. Well, not typically, is very specific to each individual. And so I don't want to speak out of school, out of turn here. But what I can tell you is the recovery of voice post vocal fold surgery can take some time. But equally, it is a journey well worth investing in. We typically like to see the patient spend time with a speech pathologist to really explore full function of the spoken values. And then we step into working with someone like myself to then workshop the voice around singing values, which generally requires a greater range, typically requires the voice to be under higher loads, and so that access to your head voice that you're referring to there is almost certainly going to be related to the type of surgery, where the lesion was, the level of scarring that may or may not have been produced because of the surgery. There are so many factors that are going to come about that you might want to even ask your surgeon for more detail about, so that you can then take those details to including pictures, if you can get pictures or video from the surgeon from the surgery, and take those with you to the speech pathologist. And then I'm always interested to see those pictures as well, so that I can see whereabouts is the whereabouts on the vocal folds has the surgery taken place, and that these are all really important factors that lead us towards bringing about much more positive outcomes for people who have had vocal fold surgery. I hope that's helped. I've just seen some extra comment here from Michaela, who says, this question is close to my heart. I'm mourning the loss of my voice and determined to practice the best vocal hygiene I can, especially if it helps my voice come back. Absolutely, Michaela. I did a review analysis video of Hayley Williams just recently, where I made comment about just how brave a singer needs to be in re-establishing their voice after the voice has fallen into disrepair or developed a pathology. You haven't made mention of what type of pathology that you've had removed, but the reason you have to be brave is because the voice, and I made this comment earlier when we were talking, the voice is so intricately connected to our psyche, isn't it? And you do have to be brave. And Michaela, I want to encourage you. The journey is well worth traveling, but it's not easy. And I don't want to be toxic in my positivity towards you. I don't want to suggest that, you shouldn't worry about it, you'll be fine. No, these are challenging things that will take you some considerable time to work through. So, please know that with the right support, with the right input, we hopefully can see a really progressive re-establishment of your voice. In some cases, there's a new normal for you to discover. I don't know whether that is what your scenario is going to call for, but sometimes a singer does have to remap their voice to find out, okay, well, what facility do I have? Instead of seeing it as what don't I have, it sometimes is necessary to go, okay, I don't have that, but I now have this. And and sometimes that is required. So hopefully you find that encouraging. We've got one more question that I want to get to because we're nearly out of time, but let's go to here. Just bring this down. I don't know why that slipped up. I'm very particular. How do we Swaraj? Is that how I say your name? How do I get rid of nasal voice? Well, firstly, you make sure you never use consonants like M's, N's, or NG's. I'm being facetious. There are certain values that are nasalized. And look, I've got a whole video on reducing nasality in your tone. But in that video, I explain that nasal is not bad. Nasal tone is not an evil thing. In fact, it can be a rather positive thing in certain genres. If you can't create a nasalized twang in country, then you may struggle in certain aspects, certain sub-genres of country. You may really struggle to form the right kind of sound. So let's recognize that nasality is not bad per se. That being said, if you are like me, when I grew up, I had a hypernasality to my sound. I needed to go along that journey of reducing that level of hypernasality and repositioning, retweaking the voice towards twang, which I'm able to manage more directly. So it's the thing with nasality, the nasal passages, though are quite large, are very thin and fixed. The only thing that changes about them, for the most part, is the membranes that are along the surface of them, and they can swell due to allergy or head cold or air pollution or whatever. So there can be inflammation that can come about through the nasal cavity, but for the most part, they're a fixed size. Whereas twang, and again, you could have a look at my video on twang as well, twang is able to travel through the mouth, but it still gives us that clear, focused resonance that we're in search of for certain genres, and a lot of contemporary genres, rock, pop, country, indie folk, jazz, music theatre, really benefit from the development of twang. But Swaraj, can I encourage you, go and have a check out of my video about the removal or the reduction of nasality. I can't remember what it's called. We're up to, I think, over 750 videos on the channel, and there's just no way I can remember the name of them all. Linda, the wonderful Linda, goes and searches for them and finds them for me, and they're always in the replay version of the video. And hey, a shout out to everyone who watches hopefully you've been listening the entire show today. A shout out to everyone who watches the video as a replay, which is most of you. I hope you're all doing well. We are going to call it a day and jump into the rest of our week, which for many of you hasn't yet started because you're all a lot of you in the Northern Hemisphere. I very much hope you've enjoyed today's show. I hope today's mini topic was encouraging. I hope it's given you a sense of being able to front up to criticism with a little bit more backbone, a little bit more maturity, and with a sense in which criticism comes to us all. And I really want you to be able to take advantage of that criticism, that critique, when it comes from the right person and it's delivered with enough clarity, and you can really use that as fuel and motivation to move you forward with your voice. We'll call it a day. I hope you've enjoyed the Hangout. Please leave a thumbs up if you have. And I've just been noticing something. There must be a new feature on. It must be on the mobile app. People leaving little. I'm seeing little love hearts go up, which is, there we go. Hey, little love hearts going up there. It must be on the mobile app because I can't see where you can do it on the desktop version. But look, loving the fact that you're enjoying the show, and I do very much enjoy it. Hope to see you again next week. Next week will be a full-blown Q&A. So make sure you come and for those of you who are wondering, we haven't had many guests this term. In fact, we've only had one. And we won't have another live special guest until the new term. So basically until October. There's a reason for that. I had a number of guests lined up for this term, and due to a number of different reasons from a number of different people, all of them independent of each other, we've had to reschedule them. And in fact, we've rescheduled them into next term. And it was just for all very valid, all very normal reasons. And my schedule has been such that I just didn't have the time or to reach out to other people to participate. So we've gone with just doing Q&As and mini topics, and I hope you're getting as much out of that. Anywho, I very much look forward to seeing you again next week for our Q&A. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.